Welcome back to the Restoration Soul Care Podcast. I'm Michael Camber, relationship and recovery coach, restoration soul care coaching practice I founded to help men, women, families overcome unwanted sexual behavior, including things like pornography addiction, which is the primary focus of what we're talking about now. Today, we're continuing part 2 of our journey through the triggers guide, the 5 triggers that keep you stuck in pornography. And today is all about anger. Most guys think anger is the problem when it's not, because the real problem is what you do with it. Anger, like sadness, like we talked about last time, is just a signal. It tells you something's not right. But if you don't understand that, it'll burn everything down, or it'll just get buried and blow up later. And if you've ever experienced anger, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So maybe a good question to ask is, what if your anger is not failure, but really just another call to action? So again, today, core feeling is anger. Our core need around anger, what we feel is this sense of, I need justice or healthy boundaries or change. Something's not right. We got to sort it out. And what's happening is that you feel violated. You might feel disrespected or powerless. But instead of naming that, you just push it all down and you shame yourself for being mad. I've done that 100 times. And porn becomes a secret form of protest in that. It's a way to say, screw this, screw that, screw you, and take back control. I'm going to do this. I can't tell you how many times guys have been doing so well on their recovery journey, haven't relapsed forever, and then whoop, they come check in with me and it's like, oh, hey, yeah, I relapsed this week. And I start prying and ask them what's going on, what happened. And they're like, dude, honestly, I didn't really want to look at porn. I wasn't really feeling that. But my wife pissed me off and I wanted to do this because I knew it would make her angry. And it was sort of like a subtle way of getting back at her. And what they're really saying is, I felt angry, didn't know how to express that, so I decided to hurt somebody instead. So the shift that needs to occur is you have to let your anger lead you to the truth. And what you need to know is that anger isn't sin. When you experience anger, there's a sense of injustice or something's just not right. Unexpressed or unfelt anger becomes bitterness and depression in the body. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But healthy anger shows you what you need to change. It reveals what you're passionate about. Anger will lead you to regain your voice and your choice. Anger will tell you what you're passionate about. Thinking about the feelings chart from Chip Dodd in his book, Voice of the Heart. The gift of anger is passion. The impairment of anger is depression. It's a suppressed voice and suppressed choice. I don't have anything here to say that matters, and I certainly can't make any decisions that bear anything significant. So I just shut it all down. So again, the order doesn't matter. I just sort of gave you a snapshot of what's in the journal, or the guide, I should say. It doesn't matter if you go to that first or you listen to this part first. Either way, pick one and then go to the other, because there's journaling prompts in the guide that I think they're going to be really, really helpful for you. So let's get into it. To define anger, we want to say this. It's a protective response to threat or some sort of violation or injustice. And, just like we did with sadness, the question I want to ask you is, where do you notice anger in your body? And you can do this, if you're in a place, not driving, where you can take a moment and sit down and do a short body scan. Just feel your way through your body, starting from the top of your head all the way down to your toes. And think about a time when you were angry recently. And just notice what shows up in the body. Is it a clenched jaw? Are you making some fists, tight fists? Does your face get hot? Do you feel like jittery, this energy in your body? I'll say this, I know most statistics are made up on the spot. I'm going to make up a statistic that feels right. 99% of the time when I ask men this question, when they sit in my office, 99% of the time they say anger lives in my chest. And when I say describe it, they said it feels like heat, it feels like tension, it feels like pressure. And I can relate to that. That's how I notice anger in my body. And I want to be careful to differentiate between anger and rage. Anger is not always rage. Rage is what we might call an unhealthy anger. That comes off as like just irritability or, sarcasm, impatience, can cause you to shut down. I'm trying to remember the movie Anger Management that came out years ago with Jack Nicholson and Adam Sandler. Jack Nicholson is his therapist. He makes a comment about sarcasm. I'm trying to remember what he said. Sarcasm is angry's ugly little cousin, or something like that. But that's true. Sarcasm comes in. It's rarely helpful. But anyway, all that to say, core need that you're after in this is, again, justice, protection, boundaries, power. Oftentimes anger says something like, something's important to me and it's being violated. And that could happen at any time about anything. What causes you to be angry might not be what causes me to be angry. That's okay. I'm trying to think of an example. You might, 10 years ago, I used to have pretty significant road rage. I would get really irritated if somebody wouldn't use their signal. They'd cut me off too close. And, it could just be on the surface. It's just like, well, I just have a problem with bad drivers. What was really going on under the surface is I have a problem going unnoticed. And so, oh gosh, this could get it really deep really quick. But when I'm in a driving situation, especially on the freeway, there's a ton of cars. I don't know anybody that's driving these cars. I don't know if they're good drivers or bad drivers, decent people, undecent people, or what they're doing. But I can tell you if they cut me off, what they're saying is you don't matter. The safety of you doesn't matter. You might have a car full of kids. Ultimately, that doesn't matter because I'm just going to drift on over into your lane without a turn signal. And, if you run off the road because of it, who cares? That just really pisses me off. And there's a good reason for it because I just described to you what the injustice was, the sense of something being violated. My safety, the safety of my kids and family that I have in my car is being violated by people not obeying the rules of the road. Maybe you feel that way. Maybe you don't. I don't know. I've grown a lot in that area, so it doesn't bother me too much because I've learned that I can't control other people. I can only really control myself and my response to those people. And rather than reacting out of rage, which could be speeding up, riding your tail, sometimes you might give people the finger or stare them down or whatever that is. It's like what we're doing is an attempt to control people, and we don't have any control over other people. That's important to remember. So you can't control yourself. Think about how you want to respond. So that's sort of what anger is. But again, framework, notice it in your body. Where is it at? Talk to that anger, chest, anger, even put your hand there, put your hand on your chest. What am I noticing? What's there? What's really going on? What do I feel like is being threatened? So, taking this back to Scripture, Jesus is our example. Like we talked about Hebrews 11, we have a great high priest who is able to sympathize with us in every single way. And, the obvious Scripture I'll take you to, which is probably the most quoted Scripture when it comes to talking about righteous anger or even Jesus being angry, was the story in John chapter 2, I think around 12 or 13, where Jesus gets angry and he goes into the temple and he flips tables over and he throws out the money changers and really has some strong words for the people who are misusing God's house, misusing his temple. Here's something that often gets overlooked in that story. This was not a reactive thing that Jesus did. This was a calculated decision that he made, because it says that Jesus, before he did that, he went and he made a whip. He didn't go find one. He didn't pick one up on the way to the temple. He sat down and made a whip, and I don't know what it takes to make a whip. I assume that it takes some effort. He was a carpenter, so I'm sure he had some skill. All that to say, Jesus' anger was controlled. It was slow, it was thoughtful, and it was calculated. And that's okay. And that's our model. He wasn't reactive. He didn't hear something and go, I'm going to fix this now, and just run to the temple and start kicking people. He didn't do that. Again, his anger wasn't out of control. It was aligned with truth. It was aligned with justice. It was aligned with, his love that he had for his people and his name and his temple and all that stuff. And then again, another verse that talks about this is Ephesians 4:26. It says, be angry and do not sin. Meaning just because you are angry, that does not mean it is sin. You can be angry and not sin. It's a challenge. It's an invitation. I think it's an invitation to be angry, maybe even a command. Be angry. Good. Don't sin though. It's what you do with it. And even in that, you can, go throughout the entirety of the Old Testament, when God's wrath and anger is kindled, it's always about protecting what's good. And so should yours. So should yours be. If you grew up, around the church like I did, most Christian men were taught to suppress our anger rather than steward it well. Nobody likes an angry guy who's raging about something. So we're just taught to suppress it, ignore it, push it down, pretend like it doesn't matter, it's not there, or we have to find healthy outlets for it. And, one of the things, I'm just thinking of my own story years ago when I first met with my therapist. I told him a story about how I got angry And in my anger, I gently flipped over an empty laundry basket, and I felt so good about it. It was so nice to just release some of that. And my wife got mad at me. She was like, "Really? You're flipping over a laundry basket? Really?" You know, and we've talked through this, so I'm not judging her or shaming her about that. She knows this. But I was jealous of her a lot because she never really withheld her anger. If she felt angry, she let me know about it. And she felt a lot of freedom to do so. And oftentimes I felt like it wasn't fair. And I would get mad and, double up on my anger because of it. But anyway, what he reminded me of in that moment is that anger is not a thought process. It's not a state of mind. It's a state of the body. When you experience anger in your body, you have to teach your body what to do with it. So he said, "Hey, do you have a safe place where you can go in your house and be alone for a few minutes and punch a couch cushion?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, go get some of that energy out." I'm like, "Okay, great." And maybe I went a little overboard with it. In my basement in our house at the time, we had this old recliner that nobody liked, and I would just beat the snot out of it, and it felt good. And I would literally time out of a conversation with my wife if I noticed that I was creeping up to that edge, and I would go downstairs and beat the snot out of this recliner, come back upstairs and finish the conversation, and it was great. So what are some common triggers and ways that we cope with anger? Some common triggers are feeling disrespected, dismissed, or ignored. Maybe you feel powerless. Again, maybe you can't use your voice or exercise your agency, whether that be in marriage, work, spiritual life, your church community, friendships, extended family, whatever that looks like. Some other triggers could be childhood wounds. How you were treated, how you weren't treated. Was there abuse? Was there not abuse? What was your experience of being angry as a child? Was that beat out of you? Or was it, I don't know if encouraged is the right word, but there is a way that our parents can show up for us in healthy ways. It's called a containment and attunement. They're a container for our anger, meaning they're a safe place for our anger. We can blow up, and it's not too much for them to handle. And then attunement means that they were able to, make eye contact with us and be present with us in our anger without trying to, push us through it. Some coping mechanisms, again, if we go into rage, not really staying in the anger place, we can explode, yell, we can intimidate people, slam doors, we can try to grasp at control, unhealthy forms of control, manipulation. We can implode, and that looks like silence, resentment, passive aggressiveness, some sarcasm. We can medicate it, and that can be, things we turn to like addictive or compulsive things like drinking, rage scrolling, pornography, obviously, spiritual detachment, where we sort of just peace out because we believe that God's not a safe place for our anger. Or we can fake it. We can fake being calm, where we can shut down and pretend everything's fine, throw some Bible verses on it, and just, bypass the whole thing. I talked about this a while back, spiritual bypassing. And just be like, yeah, well, God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him, which is a way of sort of gaslighting my own anger, which that verse isn't not true. It is true, but that's not a wise way to use that. So here's the problem with that. Unexpressed anger shows up as depression in the body, and there are two things that undergird or drive depression are suppression of voice, suppression of choice. Like I said earlier, it's when you believe I can't speak up about this thing because it doesn't matter, and I can't make any significant decisions that carry any weight around it. I've lost my voice and I've lost my choice. So what you have to do is to regain your voice and regain your choice. And we do that by trusting other people, finding those trustworthy people in our life that we can show up and be angry with, and that they can be present with us in our anger and not run away from us. Misused anger can create destruction. If we're unaware of how our anger is showing up and we're unaware of how we're expressing it or not expressing it in a relationship, it can cause destruction. Not owning our anger honestly keeps you powerless because it keeps you stuck in that depressive state. Your anger is there to drive you forward. It shows you what you care about, shows you what matters. It will push you forward. So here's the practice. Sit in it. We're going to name it and we're going to respond. So step 1, reflect. Here's some questions, reflection questions. Where in my life do I feel violated, disrespected, or even out of control? Where are those spaces in life? And then the follow-up question to that is, what is my anger trying to protect? Your anger is good. It's showing up for a reason. Like my favorite reindeer says, you feel what you feel. Your feelings are real. Instead of asking, how should you feel? The question is, how do you feel? Because that's actually what's happening. Keeps you present in the moment. What's my anger trying to protect? So here's a couple practices that you can do. In this, I think there's space in the 5 triggers guide for you to journal this, so you can go there for that. But what boundary is being crossed right now? Is there a boundary being crossed? What's the boundary? My own internal boundary, safety, control. What is it? And then anger is unique because, like I said, it is energy that feels like it's sort of coursing through your body. There's a physical release that can happen that's really helpful. So by that, I mean, go beat up a couch cushion, something safe that's not going to be destructive to yourself or to other people or property. So find something safe that you can punching bag. That's obvious. Breathing is also really good for this. So if you can get some time and do 10 deep exhales, clench and unclench your fist while you're doing it, and let some of that stuff move through you. That's going to be helpful because oftentimes when we get into rage mode, that pushes down into our lower brain where we go into fight or flight, and that's a reactive space. That's a protective space. It's not open. It's not responsive. It's not intentional. Getting more oxygen into your brain and your body is going to help move you back up to that upper brain, and it's vital that you do that. I heard this on a podcast a while back. Somebody said, you can go a long time without food. You can probably go weeks without food and be okay. You can probably go a few days without water and survive. You can only go a few minutes without air. Air is vital. Oxygen is vital. You have to breathe. So again, just with sadness, it's just a prayer to say out loud. And you can say this out loud to, 1, to yourself, 2, to God, and 3, to other people. I'm allowed to feel angry. I want to learn what it's pointing to. And then maybe here's a short prayer that you can pray along with that. God, thank you for giving me my anger to protect what matters. Teach me to steward it, not suppress it. And show me where I might need to set a boundary or speak the truth in love. That's a prayer. So I hope this is helpful. If you're listening to this before you've hit the guide, go back to the guide, go to the guide into the practice area and write out some of these things, rewind this, go back to the reflection questions, go to the practices, create some space. If you can carve out 5 to 10 minutes today and just be with this and notice this, that's really going to be beneficial and helpful for you. And like I said on the last episode, you can't wait till game time to throw these practices in, meaning if you get angry and then you start trying to do this, you're probably not going to do it. So you have to create space before you get there. You have to practice before the game. So create some space for yourself this week. Practice. Get in your body. Notice where your anger might show up. Even remember the last time you were angry is helpful to walk through a real scenario for you. And practice this. Practice managing, controlling, responding to your anger in helpful ways before it sneaks up on you and surprises you. Have a plan. What's the thing? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Yeah, make a plan. Okay, well, I hope this is helpful. Like I said, if you have questions, want to go deeper, need help, hit me up on Instagram at Mike Camber. Go to the website, rscky.com. Hit me up there. Send me an email, michael@rscky.com. I'd love to chat and help you wherever you're at on your journey. See you next time.